Hello all, I'm Kel Kidman, welcome to Breaking on the Daily, and today we begin with the Robinhood fallout. Because for those who have been completely hidden under a rock, Robinhood has been doing some nonsense over the past day or so with regard to the GameStop story. And now, I've said a lot of what I wanted to say about the GameStop story just yesterday, and I'm going to leave most of that there. Because what I actually want to talk about with regard to this Robinhood story and the story with regard to lawmakers calling for a hearing into this app is with regard to, well, the fact that they are selling people's stocks without their permission. Now, normally you'd call that stealing, but in the case of digitally owned products like you do have for something like Robinhood, you don't actually own the stocks you have in Robinhood. Because it is a digital platform, and essentially what they're doing is selling you a license to the stock and not actually the stock itself, as they do have certain controls over it, you don't actually own the stock. You have licensed it out, all right? And they are at will to take back that license at any time, given they think that you don't deserve to have that license anymore. You have the same exact problems going around all over the place because we have discarded physical media by and large as a culture. And this is a huge problem and something I've talked about periodically over the time. And really, this is a position which, to give credence to my predecessors and to my inspirations, this is a position that I gained from a certain Razor Fist. One of the, I think, best positions he's held for as long as he's held it, and it really has helped me in a lot of ways to recognize the importance of physical media, and now I have gotten to the point where I'm building out my own physical library and lots of other things, also building out my physical games collection, though not as much because I haven't been playing a lot of games recently, so I've been mostly doing the library stuff because I've been reading a lot lately. Really great. I've really enjoyed it, and I do suggest that all of you who are doing this as well do the same, or who are watching this do the same, because it really is quite fun to have such a big library with a lot of really good books. It's just to be able to pick up at any time. But to get back into the main thrust of the story rather than being off in the weeds, there have been lots and lots of discussion going on around it, and one thing, I think the congressional hearings are probably okay. I mean, they're probably going to be just as useless as all the other congressional hearings that we've been having over the past few years. But, I mean, there's no harm in having them. And frankly, I think there's nothing really to be done here other than stop using Robinhood, use some other way to do stock market exchanges. That's pretty much my suggestion. I would be hesitant to actually overregulate this sort of stuff. But speaking of regulation, there's been a bit of a trend I've seen among many conservatives, and particularly the common good conservatives, if there wasn't any preamble to that sort of thing happening, of them making a bedfellows with the likes of Bernie Sanders and AOC. Now, the AOC stuff fell apart almost instantaneously because when she accused Ted Cruz of wanting to murder her, which was an utterly ridiculous thing and probably liable, but whatever, especially since it wasn't said on the House floor. If it was said on the House floor, no one would care, because you can't get sued for stuff you say on the House floor. Pretty ridiculous, but whatever. In this case, though, so AOC has been, accused Ted Cruz of being essentially involved in the Capitol riots and wanting to have her killed and whatnot. And on top of all of that, you see, as inevitably you're going to see from the sort of leftists who would jump on this train, the tax the Wall Street transactions crowd. That's who's mostly come up in this case. You saw protesters showing up and doing that sort of thing. And, to understand entirely how much of a forehead position the idea of taxing transactions on the stock market is, to understand it totally, you have to understand that who they're trying to fight are the hedge funds. People who have hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars in stock. I mean, people who are investing at that level. Adding like a 10% tax on transactions isn't going to affect them. In fact, it's going to make their position much more tenable. The reason being that a 10% tax would make a huge difference against Wall Street bets. I cannot believe just how much these people do not understand the cause they're supposedly supporting. It amazes me to see the sort of what people are calling for in the wake of all this. More regulation of the stock market. Utterly ridiculous. All you're going to do is... I am amazed by how many people who are supposedly in favor of what Wall Street's bets are doing are going around and saying we should put in regulations that are inevitably going to be used to stop what Wall Street bets is doing right now. I'm amazed because adding a tax to Wall Street transactions, which would obviously manifest itself in just a stock transaction tax, is only going to hurt the small investors. It's not going to hurt the big hedge funds, because then the hedge funds get a carte blanche to do whatever they want. They don't even have to worry about Wall Street bets anymore, because Wall Street bets is going to have much less of an ability to actually affect them because, well, taxes. Huge taxes on these sorts of things deter people from investing. Oh, it's utterly insane. These sorts of people are just the useful idiots. Truly they are. They are useful idiots for the establishment. That's why all of these people, in all likelihood, voted for Biden. That's why they did, despite probably being communists. And I don't mean that in the sense of, oh, they're liberals who are pretty far left or social democrats. I mean probably they are actually communists. These are people walking around with Eat the Rich signs, all right, and all these sorts of stuff, and probably half of them are wearing Che Guevara t-shirts. I am not being figurative when I say these people are probably communists. Why? I'm not going to go into it too deeply, as I've already think I've made my position clear as of yesterday, and if you haven't watched that video, the second half where I'm ranting about insider trading bans, that's what you need to watch to get my full perspective on what the problem with the stock market is currently. And yeah, there's been a lot of talk as well about people like Ben Shapiro and whatnot selling out. And you know what? To talk about Ben Shapiro's position, he's not completely wrong, because what he said about what the stock market does is accurate, assuming that the stock market has not been corrupted, assuming we are actually living in a capitalist free market system. What he said was accurate. The problem with Ben Shapiro, and this is a problem which pervades a lot of what he says. I mean, the exact same problem that he has with how he talks about elections is this exact same problem, is that he has a tendency to believe that our systems and infrastructure are not corrupted, and haven't been corrupted at least as deeply as they really have been. He believes that the stock market, isn't filled with cronyism to the same extent that it obviously is. And I think this is more a blind spot than, him specifically selling out on principle, because you can see him later talking about how this Robinhood stuff is complete nonsense and all that sort of thing. I don't know. My opinion on Ben Shapiro is a bit different than a lot of other people's. I don't incessantly hate him or anything like that, or, complain about him or whatnot. I don't think he's a sellout. I just think he lacks certain perspective. That's what I think about Ben Shapiro in a lot of ways. And he trusts institutions too much. I wouldn't say he's an institutionalist, not really, but he's on the verge of being that. Though he isn't a rhino, I would say, because he does actually have libertarian and conservative leanings, and he does have principled leanings, just not, he's just not good at this. He's a bad strategist, and he lacks certain perspective. But other than that, I just, he's fine. I'm not going to try and purge him or anything like that. Certainly not. But anyway, on to our next story. And this is a doozy, and something that has kind of gone under the radar because of the Wall Street stocks story. And that is, DC is currently under permanent, essentially lockdown, military involvement in it. They have a permanent wall now around the Capitol building to protect Congress. Which is always a good sign to see in a republic when you have to protect the elected representatives from the people. Yeah, really wonderful sign there. Ooh. Can't wait to see that wall eventually be torn down in 2 years. I imagine that sort of thing will end up occurring. Though this will be a permanent fixture throughout the Democrats' clearly fascist ruling over the U.S. at this point. I will hope to eventually see this sort of thing come down, presumably in 2022 or 2024, when they inevitably lose out like the idiots they are. Because this sort of thing is really bad for optics. And, there are these really funny Twitter accounts. Biden supporters posting their L's online. That Twitter account is great. I don't know if they have a Gab or Minds, but I'd follow it if they do. I haven't seen if they do. So I've been having to go to Twitter and just look at it, which has been a annoying experience because I really don't like Twitter. I really am trying to not use it at all, but I have to go and watch that Twitter account's updates because they're just wonderful. Truly a wellspring of hilarity, that account is. But this sort of really totalitarian, fascist signaling, and I'm not just talking about it in the sense of, oh, they look kind of similar. No, I'm not taking the route of, oh, look, there are huge crowds in this picture, and there are huge crowds in this picture where Hitler's speaking, so they're the same. No. I'm talking about it because the purpose of this fence going around the Capitol building and the fences going around the Capitol buildings of all sorts of dictatorships are the same. The purpose of having 7,000 or so troops permanently stationed in the Capitol is the same as having troops permanently stationed in the capital of any other dictatorship or any other failed system, any other illegitimate government. The purpose is absolutely the same. The purpose is to prevent the people from actually affecting change, or preventing the people who they are scared of from running them out. That's what it's there for. Truly, that's the only reason it would be there. Otherwise, why is it there? Most popular president in history. It is an utter absurdity to see that sort of thing continue to be parroted by certain people in the media, all the while completely ignoring how he actually won the presidency. Because a funny thing is about all of the people who are explaining how, oh yeah, Biden won legitimately in a honk-honk, totally fair election, is that they totally miss how he actually won. Which is to say that he didn't win in the suburbs. He didn't win in any of the places that people were going to say that Trump was going to lose out on. No, he won in the cities. He won by getting so much more people in the cities to vote, so much more over Barack Obama to vote, that he won. That's how he won. He didn't do all that much better in the suburbs. I don't even think he did better at all, by and large, in swing states. Of course, this changes depending on which state you're talking about, but just speaking about Michigan specifically. In Michigan, Biden won in Detroit. That's how he won. If Detroit wasn't involved, or if Detroit was at numbers considered normal, or even considerable to Barack Obama's turnout, he wouldn't have won. He would have lost. Because everywhere else, Trump was doing good. He was doing gangbusters. If anything, he was potentially even doing better than he did in 2016. But in Detroit, Biden got a higher percentage of black voters than Obama did. Utter hilarity. Especially when across the country, nationwide, black voters broke something like 5 points more for Trump than they did for him last time. And of course, he didn't win black voters, but he did much better among black voters nationwide compared to 2016. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, which is why you never see the sorts of people like Nate Silver or Ben Shapiro who continue to insist that Hong Kong totally fair election was, totally fair. That's why you see them never mention it, because it looks suspicious. And, I've always been careful throughout all of this sort of stuff. All of these sorts of allegations of, not going to say it for YouTube's sake, and all that sort of stuff. Not to say that anything specifically happened. Rather, that all of these suspicious goings-on deserve an investigation. And this has been a very good position for me to be in, by and large, because, as we've seen, they're completely unwilling to do any sort of investigation. And since they are unwilling to do any sort of investigation, I come out looking pretty fine. I come out looking pretty reasonable. The reason being is I'm not sitting here insisting that everything goes down and that it absolutely did happen the way I said it happened. All right? I was just sitting here saying, investigate it. Investigate it because it looks suspicious, and that's good enough for me. I need to see it investigated. That's all I was ever saying. And the fact that they were unwilling to do even that is impugning their motives. It's impugning their credibility, all right? It isn't harming me. It isn't harming me that they aren't doing investigations, or at least not, in that sense. It's only harming themselves. It's harming their credibility when they say, yeah, we could go investigate reasonably. We could go and look into the signatures and that sort of thing, but we aren't going to do that. Because, why? Oh, yeah, because I don't care. That doesn't make them look good. And it really is going to come back to bite them. And I expect it to come back to bite them. And that goes for everyone in the monoparty. Because monoparty representative, Senator Romney is twice as popular with Utah Democrats as he is among states Republicans, according to a poll. This is entirely unsurprising. Something like 85% of Democrats in Utah approve of Mitt Romney because of things like he's protecting his truth and all these sorts of nonsense. While the Republicans in his state, he has about a 45% approval rating. Half that. Wonderful. Still too high, in my opinion, among the Republicans. I want to see 100% Democrat approval from him and 0% Republican approval from Mitt Romney. Because Mitt Romney is the quintessential example of the monoparty representative in the Congress today. And no, it has nothing to do with the fact that he doesn't like Trump, all right? I didn't like Trump a whole lot in 2016, all right? That's not what I'm saying. Mitt Romney, I still didn't like the guy in 2016. The reason I didn't like the guy is because he's a rhino. It's because he's the guy who made the blueprint for Obamacare in Massachusetts when he was governor. That's why I don't like him. I don't like him because he postures about being a part of the same religion I am. And I'm not impugning his ability, his Mormon bona fides or LDS bona fides. No, not at all. But I don't like that he uses that so often to say, well, the only legitimate form of politics is to be entirely soft-spoken and to not actually fight or do any sort of thing like that. I don't like how he uses it in terms of his political career. It infuriates me. And a lot of it's just empty, and it irks me so much. It really does. Once again, not impugning his moral character. I don't know. But he doesn't seem to, in terms of his political character, his political character seems to be all out of whack, in my opinion. It just, from what I've seen of him, it just irks me so much. Because he justifies himself through that. He justifies not actually fighting for anything, or not actually standing for anything. Despite the fact that so much, to get a bit more religious here, despite the fact that so much of our shared religious teaching has to do with standing up for what you believe. Romney doesn't do that. He doesn't stand up for what he believes, unless what he believes is vapid unity. He doesn't stand up for any of that sort of stuff. He'll sit there and he'll compromise and compromise and compromise, where to the point where it looks like he's on his knees, because the fact of the matter is, he is. He's just sitting on his knees. He isn't standing up for anything. Utterly ridiculous. I really don't like the guy. I really, really want to get him out, because he seems to me like John McCain 2.0 in a lot of ways. He seems to be infecting our Republican Party to make it more and more rhino-ish, and I really just want to expel him entirely. And I hope I can accomplish that, but this is where I'm going to leave it today. Because this has been Breaking on the Daily. I'm Kel Kidman, and I'm out.